All right, I want to just sort of start with a short game. All right, I'm going to say the first part of a sentence, and I want you to finish it if you can. And if you know the answer, just say it out loud. Okay, you ready? Okay. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Very, very good. All right. Oh, I wish I was. Very, very good, very good, very good. This one maybe a little trickier. Please don't squeeze the Charmin. Since you're doing good, one more for extra credit. I'd walk a mile to. You don't know that one. I bet you know it, and you just don't want to say it. To smoke a camel, right. It's amazing, kind of, that you remember those, because a lot of those ads haven't been on TV for maybe 30 years, something like that. Which is a depressing thought. Let's just stop and be depressed. But now let me say this. How many of you, by show of hands, can remember my whole sermon from last week? Yeah, see? That is I don't know why my hand's up either, because I don't remember it either. But that's the power of small, short, catchy, little pithy little sayings, right? They stick in here, that you remember them. And we're looking at 3 of those. We started digging back into our United Methodist heritage, all the way back to the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. In the 1700s, started the Methodist movement, and he came up with 3 rules for his Methodists. And last week we talked about rule number 1. Do you remember what rule number 1 was? Very good, very good. Is it on the screen? Yeah. I was so impressed for a moment. The second one we'll talk about today is do good. So it sounds pretty simple, right? Do good. Sounds almost laughably simple. But just because something is simple does not mean that it is easy, right? Last week, do no harm. That's not too tricky, right? I mean, I get what that means. I understand that one pretty good. You know, don't be a jerk. Don't hurt people's feelings. Don't be that. I may not be able to live that perfectly every day, but I pretty much know what that means, right? But do good. Now that one can be a little bit tricky sometimes. The thing is that rule number 2 can be complicated. It can get complicated. Like, for instance, one of the best, the greatest feel-good stories of 2012 was a news story from last December. You probably saw it. This tough New York City cop saw this homeless man who was sitting there every day without shoes on in December in New York. And so he bought him a pair of shoes. He said, I had to help him. He said, you could see the blisters on the man's feet standing 15 feet away. So he bought him this pair of shoes, and somebody snapped a picture of it, unbeknownst, and put it on the internet. And it exploded. It went viral. It got 400,000 likes. It went everywhere. People were saying that this story restored their faith in humanity. Just this small little act. All right, but then a few weeks after that, the New York Times reported that this same homeless man had been seen out in the street again, barefooted. So they hunted him down and they asked him about it, and he said, well, it was nice, but those shoes he gave me were expensive shoes, and if I wear those things on the street, somebody's going to stab me and take them from me. And then the guy wanted to know where his share was of all that money from that famous picture he was in. I don't know why, but apparently this guy thinks you make a lot of money by putting pictures on the internet, and he wanted know where his cut was. It's what I mean. I mean, you try to help somebody, and it's not like in the movies sometimes, right? You have heard of a guy named Robert Fulghum. He wrote that thing, All You need to know you learning, or all I need to know I learned in kindergarten, or haven't learned anything since kindergarten or something. His books, he tells a story about a friend of his named Grady. Grady's wife up and left him, probably for good reason. And Grady is living all by himself in this little place, and he hates it. He says it's depressing. The walls are gray. The curtains are gray. It's dismal. He says, I really should paint at least the living room. He said, I figure it'd only take me about 2 gallons of paint. And he says, I already know what color I would pick. I would pick yellow. That would be cheerful. It would lift my spirits, right? He said, but if I paint the walls yellow, then my furniture isn't going to match in there anymore. And I'm going to have to get all new furniture. And that means I'm going to shopping, and I don't have time to go shopping. And if I'm going to spend that much money to get furniture, I might as well go ahead and just get myself a new place. But that would mean signing a lease and hiring a mover, and I'd have to change my telephone number, and I'd have to buy all new stationery, and everybody knows real estate rates are outrageous these days. And they said, then what if wife comes back? What if she comes back and she sees it and she doesn't like yellow? Then we'll have to repaint it all over again. We'll be arguing about that. I'll have to go see a therapist, and everybody knows how expensive therapists are. So Grady figures that 2 gallons of yellow paint will run him about $500. Well, his friends tired. Listen, 7 years. So one day Grady went off skiing over the weekend, and when he was gone, his buddies went and bought 2 gallons of yellow paint, and they went into his place and they painted his stupid living. And they gave it away, and they bought him a plant. And Grady came back and he saw it, and he was appreciative. He was really touched by it. But he says the color isn't quite right. He said, this is more of a medium yellow, and I was really thinking of something more like a bright yellow. So Grady is still not happy. Says the first thing his buddies did after that was send a sympathy card to his ex-wife. And then the next thing they did was they sent Grady a bill for 2 gallons of paint. You ever been down that road? You know, you want to do something nice, you want to help, and it just doesn't work out. And sometimes it's hard to know what the good is and how much of it you should do. I help a lot of people here at the church during the week. I have people come in sometimes to get food or give them clothes. Sometimes I can help with a bill or a little bit with rent, and it's nice to be able to help people. But I know beyond a doubt that I have been conned at least once. I know it. And I have been taken advantage of. I try to be very careful, but I know that it's happened, and I have no doubt that I have probably sometime given food to someone who couldn't afford to buy groceries because they already spent all their money on meth. I'm sure that it's happened. And to be honest with you, sometimes people don't seem real appreciative of it. Sometimes even they get kind of obnoxious. And sometimes, one day I came home and I said to my wife, I think I'm starting to hate poor people. I got over it, and it's not all of them, and it's not even most of them, but it is a few. And sometimes that makes it hard, and you wonder, how much good do you do, and who do you do it for, and how do you do it, and what really is good, and how do you know? It gets complicated. It gets tricky. And one thing we could do, we could ask John Wesley. We could say, Papa Wesley, we love your rule, do good. It's a great rule, but we're going to need you to be a little more specific than that. Need you to give us a little bit more to go on. And probably what John Wesley would say is this. One of his most famous quotes, he would say, well, I'll tell you, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people that you can, as long as ever you can. That's probably what he'd say, which doesn't help that much. But I don't think we should worry about it. I don't think we should worry about it because we're just practicing. Huh? How do you get at anything? You practice. That's what we're doing. We're practicing doing good. My son is in a rock band. For real. My whole life, I have dreamed of being in a rock band. No kidding. That is my biggest fantasy in the world, and it is probably never going to come true. But my son taught himself how to play the bass, and he got pretty good at it, and him and his buddies got a band going. Now, how come Holden gets to be in a band and I don't? Because, I'll tell you the difference between me and Holden. I want to be in a rock band, and I want to stand up in front of people and sing and have everybody think that I'm cool. What I do not want to do is sit by myself in a room somewhere for 2 hours going boom, 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 boom. Because that's a bunch of baloney. My son will sit alone in his room for hours and go boom, 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 boom. And that's why he gets to be in a band and I don't. Practice is what makes it good. If you have a sweetie, you should make sure you kiss them every single day. That's the only way you'll ever get good at it. You practice. And when we are doing good, that's what we're doing. We're practicing. And the point of this is not to always get it right necessarily. The whole point of this is it's not about me. You need to learn it's not about me. We live in a world, we live in a culture where it is all about me. And when I say that, I don't mean that it's all about each of us as individuals. I mean it's all about me. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but this is pretty much all about me. I am more or less the most important person in the world, I figure. And I think about myself all day long. Think about myself all day long. Think about how is my life going? How is my health? How is my career on track? Do people like me or not? What am I going to have for dinner tonight? Think about that stuff all day long. And so, like for instance, when I'm out driving, I really do sort of expect all of the other cars to get out of my way. And if the light turns green, not to just sit there, but to go, because where I'm going, I know is much more important than where they're going. I don't even know where they're going. That's how unimportant it is. I am an important person. I got a place to go. They got to get out of the way from me. George Carlin once said, did you ever notice anyone going slower than you is an idiot, and anyone going faster than you is a moron? Yeah, moron! And so that means that the gold standard for how everybody ought to be driving is always you. It's you. So we're all kind of, in a way, cat. All a little bit cat people. You know the difference between dogs and cats, yeah? A dog will sit there and say, this guy feeds me and cleans up after me. He must be God. And a cat says, this guy feeds me and cleans up after me. I must be God. And so we all have a little bit of that cat in us. A little bit of that cat in us. And to follow the second rule is to put other people's interests ahead of my own. And not because it's going to make me a better person or it's going to make me feel a whole lot better about myself, or it's going to make it so God likes me and I'll go to heaven. That's still about me. It's to truly put other people ahead of myself. That is much, much more difficult than we usually think it is. It is very, very difficult. Jesus said in 3 of the 4 Gospels, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. We don't get that right very often. But, hey, we're practicing, right? We're practicing. We'll get it. We'll get it. And I should say this, too. Some people overdo it. You know, some people overdo the self-denial thing. Not everybody, not even probably the majority of people, but some people take the self-denial thing a little too far. And I think this is fair to say. I think very often it tends to be women. And I think very often it tends to be women who are wives or moms. Because I think a lot of wives and moms have been brought up to believe that everybody else comes first. I think about my grandma Ray Foltz when she was alive. You know, she was expected to have my grandpa's dinner ready the moment he came in the house. I mean, when he opened the door, it was to be ready. And she was also expected to always have it hot. So she would have to time it out. So she would be putting it on the plate right at the time he pulled into the driveway. And then, of course, she was expected to serve him. If he wanted salt, Grandma gave him salt. If he wanted gravy on his potatoes, she poured the gravy. And I suspect that my grandma probably never had a hot meal herself since the Eisenhower administration. And she never complained about it or anything. She never seemed to mind it. But still, I don't think it would have hurt anything at all if just one time Grandma would have told Grandpa to get his own stupid gravy. Cook his own stupid meal. I think a lot of women have been brought up to, especially women, not always, but especially women have been brought to believe that other people's needs should come first. The needs of my husband, the needs of my children, the needs of my aging parents, the needs of the PTA, the needs of the UMW, that all comes first. That is not what Jesus meant by self-denial. There is a healthy self-denial and there is an unhealthy self-denial. And a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people go the unhealthy self-denial route. I got to share this with you. This is good. This is the words to a song. Now this is, I swear to you, this is a real hymn, okay, that I found in a real hymnal. It's not in ours, but it's a real hymn. And I'll also tell you that as long as I'm the pastor, we are never going to sing this song, okay? It's written by somebody named Bessie Hatcher, and I just mentioned that because I think we need to keep her in our prayers. You got to hear this song. It goes like this. Let me burn out for thee, dear Lord. Burn and wear out for thee. Don't let me rust, or my life will be a failure, my God, to thee. Use me in all I have, dear Lord, and draw me so close to thee that I feel the throb of the great heart of God. Oh, let me burn out for thee. It just gets you right here, doesn't it? You could have a heart attack just listening to that song, couldn't you? That is not what Jesus meant by self-denial. That is not what Jesus meant by it. We do not add any goodness to the world by running ourselves into an early grave. And Jesus never once said, love your neighbor and hate yourself. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So also be good to yourself. You know, also do good to yourself. When you're making your list of the people you want to do good to, Make sure that you yourself are on the list. Don't put yourself at the top. You can't be at the top, but make sure you're on the list somewhere. Most of us aren't going to have any problem with that. Most of us are going to do just fine in making sure our name's on the list. But some of us will struggle with it. It's hard, it's tricky to get that balance right. It's hard to get that balance right, but we're practicing. With practice, we'll get it. Do good. Do good. One of the great things about God is that God does not expect us to do this on our own energy, our own